Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly pop culture wrap-up. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is the weekly pop culture wrap-up. It's the show where I go over the week's pop culture news, mostly comic books and movies. Let's get right into it. DC Future State. What is it? It's an upcoming mini event, basically, in January and February of 2021. Now, you remember that when Dan DiDio was still working at DC Comics and Diamond hadn't shut down and DC hadn't left Diamond, before all that stuff, there was going to be this DC 5G thing, right? And it was kind of the news for a while, and then eventually it just kind of fizzled out, especially with the shutdown and DiDio getting let go. And now we know officially that all those plans have completely been just changed. They're not doing it, right? But they are going to be reutilizing some of the work that had already been done. Now, one of the things that they're doing, you remember those Generations one-shots that were supposed to come out over the course of the summer of the year to set up 5G? They're using a lot of that material for this event called DC Future State. Now, this is going to be released in January and February of 2021. It's going to have a one-shot, Generations Shattered or Fractured or something like that, in December, and it's already been set up in the pages of Detective Comics 1027. So it's going to be cool to check it out just to see what could have possibly have been. You know, when they were trying to rearrange the timeline and make sure everything stood in and of itself, on its own, all the different eras of comics, things like that. If you read Detective Comics 1027, you get the idea of where this story's going, and it basically seems like Kamandi, the original Golden Age Batman, and a few other DC characters throughout the DC timeline history having to band together for one crazy multiversal, not near a crisis event, but one of those, like, soft crisis events, something like that. Anyway, I'm excited just because I want to be able to read it and kind of piece together what the game plan was with that 5G timeline and what they do with it. DC Universe, the online app, you know, where DC Universe has original shows and they have all their movies on there, all this kind of stuff in comics. Well, we were always wondering, what is the future of this app going to be? Well, it's now the DC Universe Infinite app, and it's going to be comics only. So you will be able, it's basically it's DC's Marvel Unlimited. Now, this is something that we had already talked about here on the channel. In fact, I made the bold statement not too long ago that I thought that that would be what they would do. They're moving all the DC shows over to HBO Max. It seems like they're actually having a bit more success over there. I mean, just look at Doom Patrol Season 2 as compared to Titans or anything like that, right? And then, of course, Stargirl making the move to CW. Got those shows in front of more people. Now, what they're doing with DC Universe Infinite is making it their streaming service for comics. I think that's dope. It's going to have original content as well as being able to check out DC's backlog. I think that's super cool. I think it's necessary. I think it's been needed. And it's a great way for a low monthly fee to have access to a bunch of DC Comics history, and I'm all for that. Fantastic Four Road Trip is a new one-shot coming out from Marvel in December. It's written by Christopher Cantwell. Christopher Cantwell, to me, not doing such a great job on Doctor Doom, doing a great job on a book called Everything over at Dark Horse Comics, and really blew me away with Iron Man #1 this last week. So I'm kind of excited for this. It's a one-shot. It looks like he's delving into body horror, which I think is a great element of the Fantastic Four mythology that doesn't get dealt with too much. It almost feels like in that Josh Trank movie, maybe he wanted to go in that direction. They pulled him out into a more superhero direction. It didn't work. It was a mismatch of tones. But Christopher Cantwell can do some really good, creepy, unnerving stuff at times when he needs to be. So I think if anybody could pull it off in comic book form, it might be Christopher Cantwell. It's just a one-shot, but I'm excited to check it out. Modoc Head Games is a 4-issue miniseries from Marvel, written by Patton Oswalt, Jordan Bloom. That's right. Oswalt and Bloom are the executive producers of the upcoming animated Modoc show on Disney+, and that just seems freaking cool. In fact, Patton Oswalt's actually doing the voice of Modoc, and I can't think of anybody more perfect to do that. So they're writing a Modoc book called Head Games. How funny. I think that's cool. Usually, a Modoc miniseries doesn't get me super hype. I do love Modoc. I remember having the Iron Man Marvel Action Hour Modoc action figure. I wish I still had that. I need to get that again. Anyway, super excited for this because it will give us a glimpse of what's to come, possibly, on that TV show. From Vault Comics, we got the Picture of Everything Else. This is the next White Noise title to be announced. It's written by Dan Waters. I'm super excited for this one. It debuts in December. So you know the famous story, The Picture of Dorian Gray? Well, this is the story about who did the picture of Dorian Gray. Not the author, but the artist. Who did the painting? That's crazy because if you really think about it, that story's never been told. Leave it to Dan Waters. I'm really excited about this. When White Noise makes anything, those guys, they do a phenomenal job. And when they work with Vault, it's even more phenomenal. I've already gotten to check out Giga #1 from Alex Packnadel, for instance. Holy freaking cow. If The Picture of Everything Else is half as good as Giga, this is going to be one of the best comic books at the end of the year, 100%. Dan Waters also has Homesick Pilots debuting in December from Image Comics, working along with Casper Wingard, which I think is super cool. This one is a little bit like, how does he describe it? It's kind of like a punk rock haunted house horror story. He says it's kind of like Paper Girls meets a Haunting of Hill House. The Haunting of Hill House meets Paper Girls. Something like that. I think it sounds cool. Like I said, I'm a big fan of all the cats at White Noise, especially Dan Waters. He's writing one of my favorite comic books of the year right now with Coffin Bound Volume 2, and I'm just loving the hell out of it. Knock 'em Dead is a new one from Aftershock Comics. It's written by Elliot Rahal, which is always super cool. It's about stand-up comedy. It's a horror book about comedy. It's got a supernatural flair to it. Everybody dies on stage, or that kind of a thing. You don't really get much from the solicitation, but it's Elliot Rahal, it's horror, and it's about stand-up comedy, and he's had experience in the world of stand-up comedy. I think Rahal's one of the best writers out there, one of the most underappreciated writers, so I'm super, super pumped for this. Ant-Man 3 is going to introduce Kang, and it's going to be Jonathan Majors in the role. Now, I'm not super familiar with Jonathan Majors' work until I started watching Lovecraft Country, and he is brilliant in that show. So they got a very capable actor with very striking features and great performance capability. And throwing Kang in Ant-Man #3, it may seem weird. It may seem a little like Kang is too OP for Ant-Man, but if you really start thinking about the quantum reality and time travel and all that kind of stuff, it makes sense for Kang to show up for the first time in the new Ant-Man film. I'm 100% down for it. Ant-Man doesn't have a lot of villains to kind of choose from, but it makes sense for me in the story. Like I said, with the time travel, quantum reality type thing, it works. I think it could be cool. Is this setting up Kang to be a bigger threat on the horizon, or is it just setting up something even bigger to come? Who knows, but I'm excited to check out what Major does in this major role. She-Hulk has been cast. It's Tatiana Maslany. This is the actress from Orphan Black. She's recently been in Perry Mason over on HBO Max. I've only watched like one episode of Orphan Black, but I did like it, and I liked her performance. She's an Emmy Award-winning actor, so obviously she's got the chops to do it. I did see some people that were like, well, she's not tall enough or big enough. Like, y'all, come on. Like, are you serious? You realize that it's probably going to be CG. They're not going to paint her green like Lou Ferrigno and throw her out there. Like, it's going to be CG when she turns into She-Hulk, probably. I don't know. I hope they make it look good. Anyway, these Disney Plus shows, I'm super excited. This seems like a great pick for a great character. I'm excited to see Jennifer Walters come to life on the small screen. The Mandalorian Season 2 trailer debuted. It's great. It shows you everything you need to know. Mandalorian, Baby Yoda, my bad, the child, Mandalorian, and some teases. Like, is that Ahsoka that's in there? It doesn't quite look like Rosario Dawson, does it? But is that her? Or is it one of her students? Or somebody else? I don't know. I'm just going to say this. That trailer looks awesome. I loved Mando Season 1. I'm excited for Season 2. I always get sad at the end of Horror Fest. But one thing that makes the end of Horror Fest a bit more triumphant is the return of Mandalorian. As long as they keep that tone, that flow, that atmosphere from the first season, which I think they will, I'm already sold. And another movie casualty, Candyman, has been postponed into 2021. No official date yet, but just in 2021, which just leads me to believe that more of these movies are going to keep getting postponed. And I don't really think we're going to get too many new movies this year at all. We had the Mulan kind of thing. I don't know if that really worked out the way they wanted to. I know the Tenet release didn't work out the way they wanted to. So I wouldn't even be surprised to hear about Black Widow, which are already talking about moving that one back. Or even Wonder Woman, again, it's already been moved back to Christmas, maybe even further. What about Top Gun? That got moved back. What about James Bond? Still set for November? I don't know. I don't think many of these movies are actually going to see theatrical releases this year. But, I don't know. Who knows? So that's what we got for you this week. What's coming up here at PCP? Lots of excitement tonight. Rockin Robbie Live, 7 p.m. U.S. Central Time. We'll be chatting about this, all this stuff, and a whole lot more. Talking about the future of comics, talking about the past of comics, talking about movies, pop culture, and of course talking about horror films, because we got Horror Fest rolling right on through. Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time. A live discussion of one of my personal favorite vampire movies, Near Dark. Plus, we got the top 10, the weekly comic book review, and all the typical jazz throughout the week. So that's what we got. Lots of excitement. Join us tonight here on the channel, though, for Rockin Robbie Live, 7 p.m. U.S. Central Time. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do comment below any of your comments or questions or thoughts about anything we talked about or anything we didn't talk about, whatever. We really do appreciate the support. Please do like, share, subscribe, and subscribe as long as you feel it's necessary to do so. Join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts, blogs, and a whole lot more. Thank you so much for rocking with us. Keep on living.